I have just been on the road today, visiting some job sites and talking about the developer's mindset. So Alfred and I have been developers for 13 plus years. We were developing even before we met each other. And the one thing that I can say is that we've been consistent. The market has changed. We've developed through COVID. We're developing currently. Because what most developers need to understand is that if you wait for the market, wait for when it's right, to start planning and to start permits, you'll never be a developer, because the market is always going up and down. And the best advice that we can give, and what we do, is try to stay in control. So how do you stay in control? You stay in control by having your plans and permits ready so that you have the option to build when you want and to sell when you want. And that can be selling in a good market so that you can, get maximum profit, or in a not so good market. And if you were to sell in a not so good market with plans and permits, you've got the upper hand against other people in the market who don't have permits, because what happens is when there is a downturn in the market, there are a lot of people, a lot of developers that will come out and builders that will come out and try and create opportunities for themselves. So they'll try and get either good deals or they'll try and build. And those are opportunities for you to sell to builders that are ready to build. So if you've got plans and permits ready on your site and you want to sell, you have a much better chance of selling with permits, because somebody can come in, purchase the property and start building pretty much after they get their build permit. They don't have to worry about holding costs when the market's down and interest rates are high. And your site looks like an ideal site to purchase. So that's another option. So what plans and permits does for you is give you options, which then gives you somewhat control over your portfolio. Another great thing about getting permits and having them secured on your site is that no matter what changes there are with councils, you have your permit and no one can take that away from you. So, for example, last year we had new changes that benefited developers, but we also had changes that added cost to developers. So, for example, there was a new rule in relation to trees and the need for arborist reports now from councils. So that was a cost that was not necessary before, and now it is necessary. So just having that understanding that councils can change the rules anytime, they can require reports or anything at any time, by you getting your permit currently and understanding the site's potential now and what you can do, and getting that in writing and having that in your back pocket and nobody can take that away from you, is such a benefit and such a positive for a developer to hold on to. And again, giving you that control over your site and over your portfolio.
And touching on what Beck mentioned about getting permits, you typically have 2 years once a permit has been issued. You've got 2 years to make a start on the permit, 4 years to complete the subdivision aspect of things. So if you don't start within 2 years, you're in a position where councils typically will give a 1 to 2 year extension. So ultimately, if you started today's journey, you may be in a position where in 2029, 2030, you can potentially start your development, right? And if there has been any changes to the planning aspect of things that reduces or restricts you from doing a development in the future, well, you've already got that permit. So we had a client in the past where they had over 1,000 square meters, and what they could have achieved at the time was 7 townhouses, but then council came in, or not council, but the government came in with the garden space requirements, and then all of a sudden that reduced it to 5. Maximum he can do is 5. So that's a typical example of what we're saying. It doesn't always work in your favor. Yes, there is a housing crisis, and there is a need for more housings, but generally speaking, you can't just think that all requirements are going to benefit for developers. So just keep that in mind. One thing I will say is, in this tough climate, and you know, we're experiencing higher interest rates. You know, cost of living has obviously gone up with fuel and all that type of stuff. Don't put a noose around your neck, number one. If you're in a position to get into the market, when you feel comfortable, get in the market. Very rarely are you going to time the market, but time in the market is when you're going to make the money. So timing the market is difficult, but time in the market is where you make your money. So you want to stay in the market as long as possible. Obviously, you know, houses have appreciated, gone up in value in Australia, and history tells us that it is one of, you know, it is a solid investment moving forward to build some wealth for you and your family.
There you go, guys. So stay prepared so you can stay in control.
See you guys.